going to go ahead and show you guys how to remove a transmission out of a 2015 Nissan Sentra. You can see I'm starting out by loosening these battery terminals. Go ahead and get the battery removed. Battery tie down. Battery tray. All that good stuff out of the vehicle. And then we're going to go ahead and get the intake manifold removed, so we can go ahead and get to the starter, get the starter out of there, get the torque converter nuts, get the hose clamp pliers, go ahead and get these hoses removed from the intake. Just 3 hoses up here at the top. Right here, I'm just removing these little fastening clips to the intake manifold. And right here, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the neutral safety switch connector. This thing can be pretty tight. That's why you see me using a pry bar to get this thing disconnected. Once you've got that disconnected, go ahead and get the fastener disconnected from the transmission as well. Then use a 10 millimeter to zap those bolts off, holding the intake manifold to the cylinder head. It definitely helps to have a magnetic 10 mil because those bolts are very prone to falling down. It's not hard to recover once you get the intake off, but it's just, you know, peace of mind. And once you've got everything disconnected from the intake manifold, go ahead and get that out. And then here you see me just removing these plastic clips that keep the harness secured to the transmission.
So is that our solution?
There's also a connector back there that I'm disconnecting.
It's sort of what I'm trying to figure out. Probably do a walk around. So you can 3 oil changes, everything.
And there goes another one of those clips securing the harness to the transmission. Yeah, the tool that I'm using right there is from Harbor Freight, and I highly recommend it. Then go ahead and get these wheels removed so we can get the suspension taken apart. So we can get the front CV axles out. Go ahead and start off by removing the brake caliper. Bolt should be a 19. Remove the caliper off the rotor. Remove your CV axle nut. Should be a 32. Remove your strut to knuckle bolts. Those should be a 21. I'm going to get that the wheel speed sensor removed from the strut as well. After all that's taken apart, you're ready to get the CV axles popped out of there. We'll go ahead and zap the lower torque mount out of there real quick. Those are 18s. Once that's removed, go ahead and get this undercover removed so we can access the radiator drain petcock. Get that coolant out of the radiator. You can go ahead and get these CV axles popped out. Definitely make sure you got a drain bucket underneath, because yeah, you'll make a huge mess if you don't. Depending on if there's any fluid in the transmission or not. And at this point, you're going to want to remove the nut for the transmission mount so you can get this transmission lowered down to access a couple things better, such as this connector here for the transmission dipstick tube, a couple of the hoses for the transmission cooler. And right here, I'm just getting the transmission dipstick tube removed. It's a 10 mil. And go ahead and make sure you get that O-ring out of the dipstick tube hole as well. Put that back up on the dipstick tube. It should be good to reuse. I've never had any issues doing so. And then get these last couple of bell housing bolts removed. Get that plug out of the transmission. I put up in there just so fluid won't leak on top of me while I'm underneath this thing. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and get this connector removed from the transmission. I'm using a pair of hose pliers. Just got to be real careful with this connector. Take your time. You don't want to break this thing. I found these pliers are the best method of getting this thing removed. I have seen guys that's done transmission jobs on these things and mess these connectors all up and have all sorts of issues. Don't be that guy. And at this point, you just go ahead and get you a nice pry bar and start prying the transmission away from the engine. And once you get a tiny gap, you want to go ahead and get as close as you can to the dowel pins and start prying as close as you can to them. That's pretty much what keeps the transmission obviously secured to the engine once all the bolts are removed. Definitely take your time at this point, because you don't want to be breaking anything that, just doesn't need to be broken. As you can see how tight the clearance is between the transmission and the front subframe. It's literally resting on it. So obviously you got to move it forward. But you got to look out for that front radial support. And some of these Sentras, they have this weird crash support. Some of them don't have it. You can see it right there on the right. It's really close to the transmission cooler. But after you do a little dance with, getting that thing finagled out of there, it's money. Go ahead and double check to make sure you don't have any connectors or anything caught up top. And go ahead and get this thing dropped out of there. And go ahead and get your transmission fluid drained up out of the transmission. The last thing you want to do is trying to get this thing off the transmission jack and have a bunch of fluid dumping everywhere. Go ahead and get your transmission off your transmission jack. This is how I do it, just because of I'd rather not be trying to lift this thing with somebody else. It's just not worth the pain inside my back. I'm probably gonna be doing this for the rest of my life, so work smarter, not harder. Right? And reverse the removal procedure. Verify your fluid. Initialize transmissions. Recalibrate, relearn, whatever you got to do, man. That's it.